Do not adjust your digital device. What you are about to see and hear may shock and appall you. Join our hosts as they encounter countless thrills, spills, chills, and hilarity as they explore the very weirdest in pop culture. The following media is so strange, so beyond the scope of what is normal, it will make you ask the question, why does this exist?
This episode is dedicated to the memory of Christopher Aries, anime voice actor, best known for Frieza on Dragon Ball Z Resurrection, Dragon Ball Z Kai, Dragon Ball Z Super Broly, and many, many other acclaimed works. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Why Does This Exist? I'm Chris.
And I'm Rob.
And we have a wonderful episode today where we're continuing the Halloween kick, but we decided to go in a slightly different direction. And normally we have an episode about a video game, specifically one title, but we figured we could do a lot better on Halloween. So we decided to go with an entire genre dedicated to gore and violence and scary, scary, scary things and many spooky, scary skeletons that'll send shivers down your spine. We're talking about the entire survival horror video game genre.
And we mostly did this because we couldn't decide on just one game to do for the month of Halloween.
Exactly. So, we just kept saying, oh, let's do Resident Evil. Wait, but shouldn't we do Silent Hill? Oh, and then we were like, oh, what about The Suffering? Because nobody talks about that. And then there's Doom, and there's Night Trap, and there's all these other things, and there's Jericho, and all these other video games. And then eventually we just said, what the hell? Let's just do the whole damn genre. So we're doing it. For you folks, for the people. We're doing it for you. Now, before we get started, I do have something. I do have something to get off my chest, and I don't mean our usual spiel. I will get into that, but there's been a serial that has been eluding me for many years, and I've been trying to get my hands on it. And it is Halloween themed, but I've been trying to get it every season. I've been trying to get it in January. I've been trying to get it in May. I've been trying to get it in August. I can never find this goddamn cereal. And I finally saw it the other day. There's finally some light at the end of the tunnel. I'm talking about Count Chocula. I've been trying to eat this cereal. What?
You've never had Count Chocula before?
No. I've had Count Chocula.
Oh.
I just haven't had it in a very long time. No, I haven't been living under a rock. It's just...
Okay.
I just haven't been able to find this freaking cereal. It's eluded me all the time. I've been trying to get it. I've gone to multiple supermarkets. I've gone to various Walmarts. I've been trying to find this cereal. Nothing. Not even Frankenberry. But no one cares about Frankenberry.
Frankenberry sucks.
He dies alone anyway. And Boo Berry, no one gives a shit about Boo Berry. It's like Casper's like degenerate cousin who has a gambling problem. No one cares about Boo Berry at all. Or, actually, no, that's probably not even Boo Berry. Boo Berry doesn't look like the gambling type. Honestly, it's probably Casper's cousin who, like, got divorced and, like, his wife had various affairs and what have you. This guy's a schlub. So, like, no one gives a shit about Boo Berry. But Count Chocula, on the other hand, it was a delicious cereal, and I could never get my hands on it. You could only really get it around the Halloween time. You would traditionally see it pop up. But you'd see it throughout the rest of the year with all the other batch of General Mills cereals. And it just kind of disappeared and went went MIA for the longest time. And I couldn't find it in any grocery stores. I couldn't find it. This is like for at least 5 years, I've been trying to chase this
Wow.
damn cereal down. So finally,
See, that's a New York problem because I never have a problem finding Count Chocula. It's
Oh,
always in the stores from like September on.
oh yeah, of course. Rub it in, why don't you? So I find this cereal, and the other day, this guy Patrick Hickey Jr., who we're going to talk about a little bit in this episode, he's a former college professor of mine, but he's a really cool guy, and he does a lot of writing about video games. Actually, in his first book of this series, The Minds Behind the Games, it's a video game book, but he has several of them. Where I only have the first one, which he so kindly signed, but he has other ones. It's like a whole book series. He has like the minds behind the sports games, the minds behind the shooter games, the minds behind degeneracy games. I don't know. He has all kinds of things. But anyway, so he posted a picture the other day on Facebook of him holding Count Chocula, and there's a 50th anniversary, so I know he didn't go on eBay and buy this. And there's a 50th anniversary box, so I can't take it anymore. The other day, my fiancée is in the supermarket, and she's like, and she was so kind that she remembered Count Chocula, and she said, I looked in the supermarket, they didn't have any Count Chocula. Now, this is at the supermarket by her work, so she really went out of the way. And nothing. So I said, I know that this exists because I've seen that they've recently made this. So none of the supermarkets by us have it, of course. So I went on Amazon, and wouldn't you know it, Amazon had it, but there's some asshole who's trying to sell a box of this for $54. Now, I didn't do that because I'm not an idiot. General Mills is selling Count Chocula for $5. The official General Mills Amazon. I'm getting it tomorrow. It's shipped. It's coming to my house. I'm getting it tomorrow. I just have to wait patiently and just get it. But I also have to make sure that I did that. It shows up in an Amazon box and not as Count Chocula. Because if it's just a regular Count Chocula box, it'll probably be gone in 60 seconds. So I need to be there. And I need to make...
I'm sure it'll be in an Amazon box. I don't think they'll just put a box of cereal on your front stoop.
I mean, if they know what's good for them, they won't. But who the hell knows? We're living in crazy times. Like just a year and a half ago, you couldn't find toilet paper anywhere. So who knows what could happen to Count Chocula, who's already rare as it is. So
I will say, for rare, you want to talk about rare cereals that actually better than Count Chocula?
I don't know. Very
similar.
I don't remember Count
no,
Chocula as well, but I'm sure there are.
Count Chocula is good. There's a better version that's very similar to Count Chocula.
You don't mean
Dunkin'
the Malto meal
Donuts.
thing, do you? There's a Dunkin' Donuts cereal?
There's a Dunkin' Donuts cereal. It's coffee flavored cereal with like creamer flavored marshmallows.
What?
Like vanilla cream flavored marshmallows.
When the
It's
hell
the
did
best.
this happen?
It's been around for a couple of years, but it's so hard to find. I only see it like once in a while, so I don't know if it's a seasonal thing or if it's just like they don't make a lot of it, so it's like a rare thing. But it is the best cereal there is.
I gotta try this. If I can get my hands on this, I gotta try it. I will be on the lookout for Dunkin' Donuts cereal. But
It's made with real coffee too, so it actually is caffeinated. It's a caffeinated cereal.
holy crap!
Yeah.
Wow, you know what? This would have been really great if we had a sponsorship from Magic Spoon right about now. But we don't. We're just gonna plug the other cereals instead. But yeah, so Count Chocula, it filled my heart up with joy when I was a child, and I haven't been able to find it in a very long time, so I haven't had this thing for years. I'm hoping that this isn't like a Twinkies thing where like they stopped the Twinkies and then they bought out Hostess and then like somebody else they brought the Twinkies back and the new Twinkies suck. I hope that that's not the case. But
No, it's still pretty good. I actually had a box not too long ago.
Count
last time I went
Chocula?
food shopping, I got a box.
of Count
so
Chocula or the Dunkin' Donuts cereal?
Count Chocula.
Okay, all right. Well,
It's still pretty good, yeah.
all right. I hope so, man. I'm so damn excited. Like I can't contain it. I don't know what I'm gonna do. Listen, next week, guys, on the show, I will chronicle my Count Chocula experience. I don't think I'm gonna do a reaction thing because those things are played out. But I will tell you of my experience. I will let you know how I felt when the chocolate mummy marshmallows came through my taste buds And when the milk and the chocolate bat cereal and everything just came in through my face hole and just made me feel whatever it made me feel, I'll be really upset if I feel bad about this. But if I feel great about this, well, I will be on cloud nine, and I'm just going to keep buying this in increments from Amazon. I'll probably hoard it, and maybe one day I'll be the asshole charging $55 for a box of this. I don't know. Maybe I'll sell out to the cereal world, and I'll become the first big cereal investor. But then again, who the hell wants to pay $54 for potentially stale cereal? I don't know, but I guess if there's a market for it, good for that guy. Anyway, let's get on with our show. Let me start with our plugs again. Why does this exist? My head's all scrambled now from thinking about Count Chocula.
Oh, God.
Oh, my God, this is terrible. Why does this exist? If you don't know who we are, we talk about weird things in pop culture, whether it's past, present, future, whatever's going on. We're probably going to mention it at some point in the show. We've been doing this since January of this year. This is 2021. 2021. Good God, I don't even know what year it is anymore. We talk about all these weird things. You can also find us on wherever you get your podcasts, such as Podbean, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Audible, Alexa, Pandora, TuneIn, iHeartRadio, Player FM, Listen Notes, and Stitcher. And you can also find us on social media at twitter.com/WDTEpod, WDTEpod, or you can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/whydoesthisexistpod. You can let us know how we're doing in multiple ways. One of which is you can do it in private by emailing us at whydoesthisiexistshow@gmail.com. And you can even send us you could give us some tips and let us know if there's something else you'd like us to mention, or if there's anything that entered your radar that you thought would be interesting that you'd like to pass along. We'd greatly appreciate that. But you could also do this in public at the aforementioned YouTube, which is just going over to YouTube. You just find our channel, Why Does This Exist? I don't know if you have to enter in a question mark or not, but you'll figure it out. We have all of our shows there. We have little clips of some of our episodes. We've got to get onto more of the clips. We'll be pumping out more clips in no time. But we've been doing this for a little while, and we appreciate each and every one of you for sticking by and listening to us and telling us what we're doing. And on YouTube, you can comment, subscribe, tell us how we're doing. Let us know if you want to talk to anything else. And if you want to be a really nice person, that would be really great. We would appreciate it and you leave us a comment. But if you want to be extra special, you can head on over to Patreon at patreon.com/whydoesthisexist. You could give us some money, and we'll give you a shout out on the show. You can get access to all of our bonus content that we have. We haven't done some in a while, but we'll definitely try to make a point to do it at some point in the next couple of weeks or months or whatever. We'll try to do something for the Patreon, where we just have bonus content like listening to additional music, doing watch-alongs of wrestling matches, and TV shows and things like that. Or sometimes you just have excess banter of just us talking shit. The world is your oyster on Patreon. Patreon.com/whydoesthisexist, and you can even pick the show that we can do. So you will rattle off a show. You'll give us a subject within reason. And we'll have no choice but to do an episode on it at some point in the future. So if you want to do that, that will be extra special. Patreon.com/whydoesthisexist. That's the news. Here's the weather. You are about to witness the strength of street knowledge from a ragtag group of rogues. Let's get on with the goddamn show. Survival horror video games. What
a very popular genre.
Yes, one of the more popular genres. I need a glass of water. You take it away.
So, survival horror, for those that are uninitiated, of course, is basically just exactly what it is. It's a horror genre. Generally, the player is in a situation where they have limited ability to fight the enemies. For example, in the Resident Evil games, at least in the first ones, the early ones, Resident Evil 1 and 2, You had a limited amount of ammo. You really had to conserve ammo and conserve health items and stuff like that. You couldn't just kill and blow through every enemy. And then that has kind of varied through over the years of how much you can actually do to hurt the enemies. But I think we should really go back and talk about the history in general of survival horror. And really, we have to go back to really probably if not the first, one of the first survival horror games, which was Haunted House, that was on the Atari 2600. Came out in 1982. And basically, it was the most basic, you're basically just a pair of eyes and walking through this dark corridors that are just pixelated blocks. And you get attacked by the most cliched things of bats, tarantulas, ghosts. And you have to just find various items to try to get through this haunted house.
I've never played this one. I don't think I've ever.
I've never played it either. Actually, I've never played an.
I don't think I've ever played an Atari game.
I think I had a PlayStation 1 game that was Atari's greatest hits. So I've played some Atari games, but this was not on there. I actually know about this game because the Angry Video Game Nerd, when he did his Halloween episode years and years ago, played this game and kind of talked about it a little bit. And it's interesting because you get it's the Atari 2600, so it's so limited by graphics, and no one knew how to make a game back then. They were just pumping out whatever they could. So all these horror games back then had the most cliched enemies. It was you always fought ghosts, spiders, and bats. That was the only three enemies you would ever fight or get attacked by.
I mean, pretty much. They didn't have
this was kind of interesting because it was a top-down view, and you were walking around as a pair of eyes, because I guess that's all you could see in the dark.
Okay.
As a person's eyeballs, kind of thing. And you could get a match that would light you up, and I guess that would allow you to kind of see the enemies.
Okay.
But yeah, it was very basic. So as time went on, consoles got a little bit more advanced. Obviously, we got more advanced horror games.
I mean, the game didn't really start to get popularized, and the genre didn't really start to get popularized until, I would say Wolfenstein and Doom, but those are really more shooters that have horror elements to it.
Well, I mean, Wolfenstein really wasn't that horror. It was more you're fighting Nazis and stuff. And I guess some of the later Wolfenstein games have some horror elements, like Return to Castle Wolfenstein. There's zombies and the Nazis doing all these weird esoteric experiments and stuff. And, but the first, it really didn't become popular until the 90s. And Doom is definitely more horror focused because, you're fighting demons. It's kind of scary. It's pretty scary.
Well, I mean, you're in hell. You're in hell, so you have to fight demons.
Yeah.
Blow them up.
I would say Doom 64 more than Doom or Doom 2, because Doom and Doom 2 had this MIDI heavy metal soundtrack basically. So it just felt like badass. You're going around, you're blowing away demons with a shotgun and stuff, and they're pretty scary, but you feel pretty safe. Doom 64, which I believe came out in 1997, I want to say.
So the funny thing about Doom 64, I own a copy that doesn't work. So I've actually never been able to play the game.
Oh, really? Well, it's an amazing game, and it's actually available on Steam now.
So I've heard.
Yeah. But basically, they used a more dark ambient soundtrack, and it was very, very creepy. And I played it when I was 7 years old, so obviously I was friggin' scared out of my mind as a little kid. But the intro sequence was one of the scariest things I had ever seen in my life, because it's basically all these space marines just getting friggin' wrecked by demons, and like it's just like, and then there was all these like weird moans and growls, and it was a really scary game, very atmospheric.
Wow.
But again, it's still a shooter. You still have access to a lot of ammo. You know, there's really no like threat of being like, oh crap, I'm out of ammo, and I have to run away. Like you always have a way to kill the enemies. So not really so much survival horror, definitely horror. If going back to the early 90s, there was a game called Alone in the Dark, which is a pretty popular game. A lot of people played it. It was originally on, it was a DOS game.
This one I haven't played either.
Yeah, I have not played it. I've seen videos of it, obviously. I've not played it myself. But it was actually, Guinness World Records awarded it the first 3D survival horror game, which makes sense.
Really?
It came out in 1992. Yeah. It did come out in 1992, and it was 3D, which 3D graphics in 92 were very rare. Like, this is, you know... And again, this is why it came out only on DOS. It didn't come out on any consoles at the time, because I don't think there was any consoles at the time that could possibly handle the graphics.
Probably not, because it was 92. What was the...
Super Nintendo was out, and it did have the 3D processing, because it had like Star Fox, but
right,
it was
but I don't think it had enough to
pixels.
do that. Yeah, I don't think it had enough to handle that.
No.
Was Sega?
It was just
well, actually, no. Sega was
Yeah.
around the same. Sega was anything with a cartridge. I don't think could have handled it. Like a Sega CD, maybe could have worked, but
Probably not even that.
not even. No, it probably didn't have enough. Probably didn't have enough capability to do it. Otherwise, they probably.
Yeah,
They
I think they eventually
on there.
ported Alone in the Dark to consoles, but not until like the mid '90s, like you know the Sega Saturn and PlayStation and stuff like that.
Got it.
And basically, Alone in the Dark, it was based off of Lovecraftian horror, and the player is basically you choose your protagonist. You're in this like haunted house. It kind of popularized the like fixed camera angles, and like you kind of run around a room with a fixed camera angle, which became really popular in the Resident Evil franchise. That was basically like Resident Evil's like main thing when they first came out, was that fixed camera angle. And as you would like progress around the stage, the camera angle would change, and it kind of like created this like, oh crap, I can't see what's around this corner until I actually go around this corner, so there might be something there that I cannot see right now. And that kind of added to the tension. So Alone in the Dark really changed the survival horror genre, being the first 3D one. Now, throughout the 90s, there was a bunch of different games, survival horror games. Some interesting ones came out in the Sega CD era, and we had mentioned this before the show. We were talking about it. Night Trap, which another pretty infamous video game, which basically, for those who don't know, it was a full motion video game. Which full motion video games were basically like interactive movies. So you didn't actually control a character per se. You kind of controlled. It was almost like playing with DVD menus or something like that.
Yeah, or I guess you could see as like the choose your own adventure
Yeah,
movies that you could like do on Netflix or anything. Like that's kind of the best way to describe it. It was like the early, like the earliest possible predecessor, which I guess this like really like built the framework for a choose your own adventure.
yeah.
Because all you really did, you chose what room you're going to go to, or like what direction we're going to go into, and then and then something would happen, whether you died or the story would progress, or like you just didn't find anything.
Well, Night Trap was kind of unique too, because everything that was happening in real time, so you could kind of switch around cameras and to the different rooms. It's basically like you're trying to protect these girls in this house while these like people try to break in and like kidnap them or something. The plot is kind of convoluted. I never played the game myself, but again, I've seen like plenty of like videos of it, and I've seen like, you know, plenty of stuff about it.
Yeah, I mean, I never played it myself, but I have seen plenty of things. Now, Hasbro had picked this up, and that was where a lot of like the problems with the plot really happened was because like Hasbro being a toy company, there were horror elements that the original game designers they just didn't want this to happen. I'm reading through the Night Trap chapter as well. It's like Nolan Bushnell and James Riley and Rob Fulop. They were like the people that were like working on this, and they wanted all these things to go. They had their original idea where like these vampires were gonna invade, like they were gonna invade a girl, like this like slumber party with girls or whatever. Like just 3 girls are having a slumber party, like high school girls or whatever. And then like the house has a bunch of dangerous stuff in it, and like vampires are supposed to come. But it like Hasbro, like they were like, oh, we can't show vampires, we can't show blood, we can't do these things. So like it just didn't make any sense. I'll read the part from Pat's book, The Minds Behind the Games, which you can just like hit him up, Patrick Hickey Jr. That's probably the easiest way to get a hold of him. He runs ReviewFix.com, and he teaches at several colleges. You can also probably get it through like McFarland Publishing. That's probably like another good way to get it. But you want to just hit him up, and he'd probably be the guy. He also recently started doing a comic book series called Conjury. I haven't really gotten around to it, but I imagine it's pretty good. Pretty good. All right, so if you've ever played the runaway hit Five Nights at Freddy's, then you basically already know how to play Night Trap. This is from the book. The premise is simple. A house is being invaded by futuristic vampires called Augurs, who attempt to steal the blood of the people inside, who for the most part are attractive young women. Utilizing the home security cameras located in a variety of places, you can see what's going on all over the compound. As you switch between the game's 8 cameras, you'll find Augurs sneaking around the home. If your timing is right, you can spring traps on the creatures of the night and capture them. Now, the Augurs look like ninjas, so they're not even really vampires. There's no blood there either. The Augurs get locked in rooms or fall through holes in the floor. It's a silly and fun experience. The object of the game simply is to protect the inhabitants of the home. It's not even to kill your enemies. Because of the subject material, Night Trap was a different experience than running around with icons the likes of Mario and Sonic. It felt like you were creating your own movie. Truth be told, it basically was. And then there's a few quotes with Nolan Bush, with James Riley and Rob Fulop. But I think it's actually no. I'm sorry, it's just James Riley. But if you want to get those quotes, you'll have to buy the damn book. But
yeah, Night Trap
censored the crap out of it, and like I forgot even how like they get the blood. I think they do it through like a gun thing that they like shove it.
It's like some weird vacuum cleaner thing that they attach to the neck, and it like drills into them, and it's very bizarre.
And that's worse. That's actually worse than sucking somebody's blood. Like. So
it was an interesting thing because you could literally like everything in the house was happening in real time. So you could like go switch rooms, and like based on like what time it was, there would be a different thing going on in that room, and you could like spring the traps or whatever on the vampires and like try to catch them and save the girls. And it was kind of a stupid game, but it was an interesting concept. And I think kind of like you said, you had mentioned in the book they talk about Five Nights at Freddy's, and this is. You know, you could definitely see how this influenced Five Nights at Freddy's.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, throughout the 90s... I think
this game got, like, an M rating, too, which is kind of funny. But
yes.
Which, like, they did not intend it. If you play it today, you'll say, what the hell was so, like, M-worthy about it? And honestly...
Well, I mean, there was some, like, scandalous situations.
There were some racy things. Yeah, like, they're not wearing, like, pants... Or, like, it's a whole, like, it's very, like, it's a very voyeuristic, and people were very uncomfortable with that situation, and they're wearing, like, fairly skimpy outfits, and they're supposed to be, like, high school girls, so there's also that, which it's, like, you can tell that the actresses are not, like, high school age, they're clearly, like, adult women who, like, understand what's going on, but, like, it's the situation, it's, like, it's the premise in general where it's just like, this is a little racy for me. So that's kind of what like led to it. And there was like, and actually this game as well as like Mortal Kombat and like other like violent games, this is what led to the ESRB rating, because it was like a Senate hearing and everything, and politicians, whatever, just like they had nothing better to do, so they put like a rating stamp on it, much like the PMRC, which we and like the music rating label, the music labels with like the explicit content that we mentioned in the Frank Zappa podcast. That happened because of this game, basically.
Yeah.
But yeah, moving on, plowing ahead.
Which, again, there were so many other games, like Doom had come out way before this game and was way more violent, so it surprises me that this was the game that, like, caused them to have the ESRBs. Well, I guess that's just America, violence is A-okay, but anything that's, like, slightly sexual, oh my god, friggin' censoring.
Go figure.
So moving on, like you said, the 90s, we had a bunch of different survival horror games. I think probably the most famous series to come out of the 90s, which still continues to this day, is, of course, Resident Evil. The original Resident Evil came out, I believe, in 96 in Japan.
Yes, known as Biohazard initially.
Yeah, so it was originally called Biohazard. The plot was basically there's all these murders going on in the woods by Raccoon City is the setting of the original first few games, and all these murders are going on in the Arklay Mountains, which is the mountains surrounding Raccoon City. So the Raccoon City Police Department sends their special forces into the Arklay Mountains to investigate, which is the STARS team. And basically they find the mansion. The mansion is owned by the Umbrella Corporation, which is a pharmaceutical company. They kind of crash land near the mansion and are chased by these dogs and have to hide in the mansion. And they find out that there's zombies everywhere. And essentially there was basically an outbreak at the Raccoon City or the Raccoon City Umbrella facility. They were developing something called the T-virus, which is a zombie virus. It gets out. All these zombies start appearing, and that's all these mysterious murders. And then it spreads to the city, and next thing you know, you have like basically a giant zombie apocalypse. And
sound familiar?
Yeah, it's heavily based on the George A. Romero movies. Like Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, etc. But really, really defined the survival horror genre. This is like, you say survival horror, first thing that comes to most people's heads is Resident Evil. In the original game, you could choose to play as either Chris Redfield or Jill Valentine, and they each have kind of like slightly different paths through the mansion. And you really have to conserve ammo. It was also unique because when you kill a zombie, you either have to destroy their head by shooting them in the head with a powerful weapon, or you have to burn the corpse. Otherwise, it will come back to life. So that was kind of unique because that really had never been done before in a video game, where you had enemies that would come back unless you met specific circumstances. Excuse me. And it really added like this level of strategy.
You okay?
Yeah. It really added this level of strategy to the game because you had to not only conserve ammo, but you had to choose which zombies that you really wanted permanently dead because you had to backtrack through the mansion. Mm-hmm. You would go through one part, get to a door that was locked, and you're like, oh crap, I have to go back to this other room that I was just in, an hour ago to find a key that unlocks this door. So you really had to be strategic about which zombies you killed and which zombies you permanently killed.
And your ammo was limited.
Very limited.
Yeah, so like you really had to make sure that you knew what you were doing. Now there's plenty of people who like do crazy speed runs for charity and everything. Like there was There's some guy at like one of the local video game stores by me. It's like a retro gaming store where like his job is just like speed runs on like Twitch, and he just does them for like charity. But you know, like you see him, and I forget the guy's name, but like you see him, and he's like, "Hey man, how's it going?" And he's like, "Oh Jesus, I just beat Resident Evil like for like 30 like the 400th time today." And like he like held the world record at one point, and
oh wow,
yeah, and we were like, well, that's not so bad. He's like, you tried doing it 300 and something times. He's like, I cannot beat my record, and it was like 40. It was like 40 minutes or 28 minutes or something stupid. I don't even remember what it was, but it was some like ridiculous. It was some ridiculous like thing, and he had gotten to a point where he just could not figure out a way to beat it any faster, and it was like driving him crazy.
Yeah. That's like been a thing. Resident Evil is one of the more popular games to speedrun, and so like there's always, guys trying to optimize every little possible thing. And so Resident Evil really, the first 3 games are probably the ones that were like most closest to the survival horror genre that we're talking about. Resident Evil 4, they kind of changed things up a little bit. It became more action-oriented. Again, also a very great game. Not saying it's terrible. But
that's my favorite one. I mean, I've only played a handful of them. I have Resident Evil 64, and I'm pretty damn terrible at it. And I've played. I never played Biohazard. Oh no, I've played a demo for Biohazard, but I never played the whole thing. I played 4 and 5. I think 5 was the last one that I played, which 5 was okay, but like it didn't really feel like a zombie game. It didn't feel like a Resident Evil game. But 4 I loved because 4 had like a good balance of scary. You like really had to be conservative with things because you were trying to protect the president's daughter. And also like there was like enough Lovecraftian elements in there too that I thought was really neat, and it was like very different where it wasn't just like a virus, it was like a whole plague, and like their bodies were like being mutated by the pathogen. So it added like a whole nother dimension as to like what could possibly happen, or like I guess what could go wrong, essentially.
Yeah. The series with Resident Evil 7 and 8 has kind of returned more to that survival horror, because I know in 7 and 8 it goes back to like you have to conserve ammo. And in the more recent titles, they've added this kind of, there's always like an enemy that chases you through the whole game, basically.
Mm-hmm. I played the first person shooter one.
That was 7.
No, Dead Aim. That was the other one that I played.
Oh yeah, okay.
A fun one.
So like in 7, it's like the father of the family that you're like trapped by. He chases you through the whole game.
Wow.
In the Resident Evil 2 remake, they basically made Mr. X, who is like the tyrant, they made him dynamic, so he could be anywhere in the police station at any time. And basically you could hear him, and like if you're on like the bottom floor and he's on the top floor, you'll hear his footsteps,
Oh wow, that's crazy.
And he chases through the whole police station. There's only a couple of safe zones that are like that you can get away from him.
Wow, so that's new life. Zero, I never played either, but I heard that Zero was pretty damn good.
I never played Zero. I heard it was very good. I have a couple of friends that love Resident Evil. It's like their favorite games, and they so they've played the crap out of them. I would say 2 is probably my favorite. The Resident Evil 2 remake was really well done. I liked it a lot because it added the like over the shoulder camera view of 4, but with like all the survival horror elements of the original Resident Evil 2. And I mean, I like Leon too. Leon's my favorite character. So I love Resident Evil 4 as well. It's a great game series. Couple of like games in the series, but for the most part, very well done.
Yeah, like I wasn't crazy about 5. It wasn't like, I mean, like the gameplay of 5 was pretty good. It was just the story wasn't. The story was like okay. But like the final boss fight was a real letdown, and like It just didn't feel like a zombie game at all. Like it felt like I mean, it just felt like you were fighting like these like weirdos in Africa.
Yeah, pretty much. That's all it was.
It didn't really feel like you were like fighting zombies or like.
It was more of an action game than a survival horror game.
Yeah, they kind of lost a step with that because there wasn't anything scary about it. Like
no.
Like you said, it did feel a lot more like just a plain straight action game. Which like a shoot 'em up is all right, but like that wasn't what I had wanted. Like I wanted a game that would freak me out. I don't know. Would you consider Manhunt a survival horror game? I guess so, right? Like it was like
it's more of a stealth game because you're like you're able to like really fight all the enemies in Manhunt.
Yeah, I mean you're right. I would put more of like a stealth. I would put that more as like a stealth game with like survival horror mechanics, but I wouldn't necessarily say that it was like that it's a survival horror game. Anyway, moving on. We can't mention Resident Evil without mentioning probably the second most popular, if not like something on an equal footing of the survival horror games. But Silent Hill. Silent Hill is the one that like terrifies a lot of people. I haven't really played Silent Hill too much. I played a demo. And I played 4. I didn't really care for 4 that much. It was like 4 was good, but like it got boring very quickly for me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Like after a while, it just stopped getting scary, and I was like, all right, fine, like big deal. It's an ape with like Siamese baby faces. Ooh, and I just like didn't really care about it anymore. But it like. Silent Hill is an interesting game too because it's like where Resident Evil is really like it just happens to like the first few games just happen to take place in this like poor son of a bitch city that like just there's just no like just doesn't have a prayer, like for whatever reason God hates this city. Like Resident Evil ends up like expanding into like various parts of the world, and it becomes like a whole global survival hunt, basically. Silent Hill is very much rooted in this town that has like a very dark past, and there's a whole like cult controlling everything going on, and like everything like comes up from this like evil cult. That even if like the people in there aren't in Silent Hill, when like these things start coming to them, they're all from it. So like it takes it does something with the inhabitants of the town, and anyone who like it isn't like if you like where like there's some like it's kind of like the town of Derry in it, where like anyone who leaves becomes moderately successful, but like the town has a way of calling them back.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there's all kinds of like crazy, like terrifying creatures in Silent Hill, where Resident Evil is more of like a physically terrifying game where it's like, yeah, it's zombies and it's like, like giant spiders and like devil dogs and all these other things. Silent Hill, the villains in the game, there's a couple of like standalone villains that reoccur in every one of them, like Pyramid Head and the nurses that you might see in quite a few of them. Mm. They're all most of the villains are, I guess I can't even call them villains. Like most of the creatures are manifestations of some psychological trauma that the main character of the game has to get past. Mm. I think in the first 2 games it's the same guy, and then like all the other games it's like it's just affecting different people. Like the third one is the girl, and then the fourth one is some other guy where he's just stuck in his room, and like there's this giant like hole that just keeps this like giant like thing that keeps rotting, and his room is like his like he lives in like a studio apartment, and is like continually getting like these mysterious chains keep showing up on the inside of the room, and he can't leave, and he has to deal with whatever the growing rotting thing is in his apartment. And he has to keep investigating into the bathroom and going into it, and that transports him to wherever the hell he is. And then, like, when he beats whatever it is, he wakes up in his bed, and it's like a bad Groundhog Day. That everything, but most of the most of the creatures and most of the monsters, they have to do with like some kind of like psychological trauma that they have to get past. And then, the game ends when they essentially get past that trauma and they defeat whatever the giant spirit that of the day, I guess. But it's very, very interesting, and there's multiple endings for a few of them. I don't know about all of them. But it's that's one that hits a lot of people really close to home and is like really terrifying.
Yeah. Speaking of like this more psychological horror, I'm going to jump ahead a little bit to another really popular survival horror game that came out in more recent years, and that's Amnesia. And Amnesia is a game. It was made originally. It was made originally by Frictional Games, and they also made the another series of survival horror games called Penumbra, which were also pretty scary and similar in Amnesia, where the player could really interact with the environment a lot. But Amnesia is really their most popular one, specifically Amnesia: The Dark Descent. Amnesia: The Dark Descent basically takes place. You wake up with amnesia, which is again the title of the game, so obviously, and you're in this castle, and you're being pursued by these crazy, weird-looking creatures that are like. And the interesting thing about Amnesia is that there's nothing you could do to actually fight the creatures in it. The only thing you could do is hide from them or run.
Oh wow!
So. And also, it had a dynamic lighting system, so you actually have a lantern that you can carry around, but you have to constantly refill it with oil, so you don't want to like use it too much. But the thing is that being in the dark too much also drains your sanity. So you have to like they have this interesting dynamic where you have to try to use your lantern to see, so you don't go insane, but your lantern also attracts the monsters, and you can run out of lantern oil, which is a limited resource. And you have to run away from the monsters. There's no way you can fight them. You can restore your sanity by completing puzzles. And that was the other really interesting game aspect of this game, is that it had a lot of really interesting puzzles that you have to complete to progress. You have to find items like little like cranks and stuff to operate machinery so you can get to like certain areas. And the plot kind of unfolds as you go through, and you kind of regain your memories. It's a really interesting plot. It's very like dark, macabre, Cthulhu or Lovecraftian-esque horror. A very good game. Another game that was made by Frictional Games, in a similar vein but with a different setting, is Soma. Basically, Soma is similar gameplay wise, but takes place at the bottom of the ocean in a research facility. I'm not going to go too far into it, but the plot, very great plot, very well done, very kind of like makes you think plot. But like for anybody that's got like fear of like the open ocean or like deep water, that kind of thing, that is like definitely like up there on like the scariness meter. Very much like based off of the movies like Sphere. Very similar to that, like, being stuck at the bottom of the ocean in a research facility and being pursued by all these like malfunctioning machines and robots and stuff like that. It was very, very well done.
Cool.
So I mean, survival horror has really come up through the ages as like one of the main genres of video games. I think it's
Yeah,
going back to the early.
I don't play them as much as I should have. I mean, I'm more of like a fighting game and just kind of like a hokey platformer kind of guy. But yeah, I definitely should start working on a few. Just like picking up a few like old school survival horror games because I just haven't. There's not really been too many that I have played. One that there were two that I was always too afraid to play. One of which it was Fatal Frame. Those I actually heard from our friend Chuck, who he's very much him and his wife Ashley and their daughter Gianna, who is she's probably playing Fatal Frame right now. She's probably like 4 years old, but she's probably tough as nails because of her parents. The Fatal Frame games always like terrified me, and even Chuck was like, "Yeah, that was a little much for me at some points." Where basically you can't, like, similar to Amnesia, you can't kill the monsters or you can't do anything to the monsters. It's you're this Japanese girl who goes into this haunted house knowing that it is haunted. I think she's trying to rescue the spirit of her brother or something like that, and she has this camera. She has like a Polaroid basically, and she can capture the spirits in the thing, and like you have to take pictures of, you're going around taking pictures of all these ghosts that are like trying to kill you basically,
Right.
like, you know, turn you into a ghost essentially, and it's really, really terrifying stuff. There's a few of them that it's but that's a good one. And Clock Tower is one that a lot of people really like. And you're going up a clock tower basically, and you're like trying to, I don't know exactly why, but you're, for whatever reason, you're in a clock tower. You got to like run away from this like guy who has these like giant garden shears basically, who's like coming after you for also reasons I don't understand. But but apparently it's very, very scary, and you have to get to the clock tower. I think you have to get to the clock tower before midnight or whatever, or like I don't know. I think there's some time thing in there too, but I'm not really totally sure. If I'm wrong, you can like, you know, yell at me in the comments section of our YouTube videos and say Chris is a jackass. He's ruining this game that I love. Stop. But a game that I have played that is also in the minds behind the games, I almost botched the title, by Patrick Hickey Jr. is The Suffering. That game I love to death, pun intended. I've played it multiple times. This game is really interesting because you're in a prison. You're in a haunted prison. And you're this guy Torque, and you're on death row basically. You're on death row at like just this like prison in the middle of like this like random island far away. And there's all these like kind of strange things that go on, and like all the spirits come on, and like, you know, there's like the earth, there's like an earthquake in the prison, and all of like the spirits and all of like these monsters that are also manifestations of all of like the wrongdoings of that prison and all of the horrors of that prison and that island, are all like manifested into this, like onto the island. And there's some kind of evil that has to do with you because now you're on death row for allegedly killing your wife and your child, but you don't know exactly if that happened because you blacked the incident out. So you don't really know what happened, but also there's like this evil inside you, and you can manifest it into this monster when you're like rage meter. You have some sort of like a rage meter where it gets like high enough. I think it's an insanity meter. I think they call it. You go insane, and I guess your character would black out, but he would transform into this indestructible monster. And based on your decisions in the game as whether to help certain people, like prison guards or something like that, like to try to help people get off the island or try to save people, whether you were good, like whether you tried to help them or whether you just outright killed them, or if you just kind of carved a neutral path, you like saved some, you lost some, you got a different ending at the end of the game, and at the end when you're like trying to get off the boat of the island, you fight the monster. The only way to really beat it is to like transform into the monster and kill like whatever the extra big monster is. But there's all these different prisons that have to do with like the monsters have to do with like there's like the Noosemen where like they're all of like the people who are just like hanged there, and they just like come from they just come from ceilings on the nooses, and like the monsters are, like really freaky looking. Like they have these like things that like move. They're supposed to be like the experiments of some of the like more deranged doctors. So like they have like all of the like they have like the prison shivs attached to them, but like but they don't have any limbs, and they look kind of like mummies, and they have like, and they're like kind of like walk like spiders and stuff. It's like really freaky stuff. Or trying to think of like some of the better. There's like one that has like there's like one that's like an executioner where it has like guns attached to the back of it, and it's supposed to be the firing squads. Like it's a manifestation of firing squads. Yeah, they really like thought this out.
Yeah,
it's like these like bloated monsters that were like the slave ships that had come like when the island was first discovered, and it's like all of like it's like this. It's supposed to be like the slave masters because like the slaves were eaten by rats, and and like it's the souls of like the cruel slave masters. So they're these like bloated like fat monsters, and when like they open and like their torsos open up and like rats crawl out of them and attack you. So like you have to like run away from the rats too. I mean, there's plenty of ammo in the game.
Mm-hmm.
So like you can get through it. It is more of like a third person shooter, but it is also like it has a third person shooter mechanic, but it's a survival horror game as well, because there's also like flashlights and things that you got to watch out for, and the ghosts of the prison interact with you, and you also hear the voices in your head as you're like trying to like decide whether or not of what you should do with the inmates. So like if there's like someone that you got to save, you'll hear a voice in your head that's telling you to kill them and to like look for dead, and then you'll hear your dead wife's voice trying to tell you to do the right thing. And there's like there's the 3 different endings where like the good ending is like obviously you find out that you didn't kill your wife.
Right.
They were already dead and you were framed, which that still sucks, but at least you didn't do it. And then there's the bad ending, which is obviously, you killed him. Right? Like you killed your family, you're a bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
And then the neutral one is just like the neutral one is just so stupid. It's almost comical if it wasn't so. It's just like a messed up thing where like you come home and your family just died by accident, basically.
Oh,
you come home and like your son like fell out of the window, and like your wife like got electrocuted by like a toaster or something, and you're just there, and you're like, oh crap, I guess I'm going to jail, and it's like really stupid. But
I guess the cops from ATM investigated that.
Yeah, pretty much. And if you don't know what ATM is, we covered this a couple of episodes ago. It's a really bad horror movie with Josh Peck from Drake and Josh. He needed the money. But like, there's also a sequel to that game, and I've beaten that too. The dynamic like that is he like comes back, he goes home, which is Baltimore, and now all of like the terrible pasts. Like all of like the manifestations of his past are coming back to haunt him, and there's like this like all of like the streets of Baltimore's issues. Like there's like a pimp monster, and there's like there's all these other things of all like the terrible things that happened in like in those years in the slums of Baltimore and in his life that he needs to deal with. But the interesting thing about the second game is that based on your decisions, the form of the monster changes and its abilities change too. So it's still like, if you're good, the monster gets like wings. It's a little bit more like angelic, but it's still like a hideous creature. If it's neutral, I think it's just like I think it's just kind of similar to the monster in the first game. But if you're like bad, then the monster is like it just becomes a lot more sinister. So they're really good games. The first one I think is much better, but it's definitely worth playing. I think it came out for for PS2 and the original Xbox.
Yeah, I think it was on the original Xbox.
Yeah, but really good movie. This there's a chapter about this also. Midway Games actually is behind this, and the soundtrack is really good too. Whoever the sound designer was really great. But if you want to read about that, about the suffering, you'll which is the subchapter is The Shining in the Darkness, which is nice touch, Pat. You can read it in The Minds Behind the Games by Patrick Hickey Jr.
I just want to, before we wrap up, I want to mention one more, because we could go all night talking about different survival horror games. There's so many.
I'm sure there's a million that we haven't.
But one, I think even Nintendo had dipped their toes into the survival horror genre a little, and of course I'm talking about Luigi's Mansion. It's hilarious because it's like you would never think, oh, okay, it's Luigi, like how scary could it be? But it is kind of creepy. There is some creepy elements to it.
There's some good jump scares peppered in. We actually beat Luigi's Mansion 3.
Nice, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, that's awesome.
I'm not sure if I mentioned it on the show, but it was a good time.
Yeah, I've played only the first one actually, but it's an amazing game. It's so much fun. Very unique because at the time, it came out, it was I believe it was a launch title for the GameCube, if I remember correctly. And everyone was confused because it was like the GameCube was launching without a Mario title, which was like, what is going on? And we had Luigi's Mansion instead, and everyone was like, what the hell is this? Like, where's Mario? And but it came out, and it was just such a fun game. It's a fun little thing, and you're basically just Luigi in the Haunted Mansion, and Mario is missing. He was kidnapped by King Boo.
Any game to use King Boo, hats off to you. King Boo is my favorite. Yeah. He's my favorite, he's my favorite Mario character, and I also have a soft spot for Bowser Jr. too.
I like Shy Guy. Shy Guy is my favorite Mario villain.
Very underrated.
Anyway, it was so basically, you're Luigi. You inherited this mansion, and I guess I don't remember if Mario went ahead to check it out for you, or if he you were just going to meet him there.
I think King Boo lured him there.
And he
gets lured there by King Boo, who told him Princess Peach was was there in the mansion and come out. I rented this mansion, Netflix and chill, and then it's not Princess Peach, and King Boo traps him into he traps him in a portrait, a fatal portrait, reference to the King Diamond 2 episodes ago. Check that out too, and then King Boo sends the letter as Mario to get Luigi in there as well. Just like this, it's like Mario help Luigi, and Luigi goes and finds him and turns, and you then the story unravels, and you have Professor Egad, who is introduced in this series, and he's the paranormal expert who gives him his Ghostbusters gear basically.
The Poltergust 3000, which is basically just a vacuum cleaner that can suck up ghosts.
Very innovative. They were trying, Nintendo was very innovative with their Mario-related titles.
Yes.
Cube, they weren't trying to do the same old stuff.
And it was cool because everything
Mario
was
Sunshine, but I'm sure we'll have to cover other episodes of various Mario games, but
and it was cool because, everything was interactive. There was mirrors and furniture and stuff, and everything had money in it. And basically, aside from trying to bust all the ghosts in the mansion and cure the haunt, I guess you could say, and also find all the boos, you're also trying to, which I don't know what the difference is between boos and regular ghosts, because there's boos and then there's also regular ghosts in this. So I don't know if there's like Boos or some special ghosts or something. Who knows?
I guess so. I guess the Boos are just offspring of King Boo, like they're related to King. So I guess they're royal ghosts.
Who knows?
So yeah, they're the family ghost, another King Diamond, and then the regular ghosts are just regular ghosts.
Yeah, like dead people that were just left in the mansion.
Yeah.
But so you have to try to suck up all the ghosts, suck up all the Boos, find Mario, but also you want to try to collect as much money as possible. And basically, once you beat the game, you're like however much money you collected throughout the game gets tallied up, and then you get to buy. Luigi buys a new mansion with the money he collected. So however much money you collected is like basically like what size mansion you get in the end. You're like graded on what mansion you get, you know.
Yeah, and that continues into Luigi's Mansion 3. I'm sure it does with Dark of the Moon, which Dark of the Moon, it wasn't released on the Wii or the Wii U. For whatever reason, it was actually released on the DS, which was kind of...
It was a 3DS title.
And it, of course, happened in the year of Luigi, which Luigi got the totally shafted that year. Nothing.
Yes.
He didn't get anything unique to the Wii U. It was just like...
We got a fucking like DLC for Super Mario Brothers Wii, basically, where it was like you get to play as Luigi or something. It was like stupid.
Yeah, as usual, Luigi got totally hosed.
Yeah. If anything, the freaking year that Luigi's Mansion 1 came out was the year of Luigi, because that was a really good game, and it starred Luigi, finally.
Yeah. Based on the success of that game, who's to say if the GameCube would have been a hit at all?
Yeah.
But,
I mean, it was definitely for a launch title, really held people's appetites until, more stuff came out. Especially because it was a while before Super Mario Sunshine came out, which was the first Mario game on the GameCube. It didn't come out right away. It was a couple of years, I believe.
Yeah, it was at least a year, since the GameCube had come out. And Luigi's I didn't play Dark of the Moon, but Luigi's Mansion 3, you're in a haunted hotel, and this time
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and this time Mario has once again been duped, but Peach and several Toads have also been tricked and trapped within picture frames.
Oh,
yeah. So it's a really grand scheme, and without giving anything away, you also have a cool little ghost dog that helps you find things too.
That's cool. There
is, of course, a counterpart. There is a cat that you have that is a big nuisance, and I hated that damn thing. More than anything in the world. But we beat the game, me and my fiance, we beat the game, and it took a while, actually. We had gotten the game like 2 Christmases ago, and we finally beat the damn thing. Because we were doing it co-op, so it took time. Not every, we're not like a super gamer couple, so like every once in a while she'll play a game, but like not too often. Which is a good balance to me, because it keeps me away from the damn consoles and like wasting my life, which is good. But yeah, it's a fun game. Your hotel will get upgraded at the end of the game based on the money you have, so that dynamic doesn't change. But a lot of fun, and instead of collecting hotel keys, instead of collecting like keys to like the different floors of the mansions, you're collecting the elevator buttons so that you can go higher up the hotel.
That's cool.
Yeah, but it's a cool game. It's well worth checking out if you've got a Switch. But back to the survival horror games, and I really want to just like mention this real quick that there have been movies that have been made based on these horror games. Like Resident Evil's gotten several movies, at least 3. Silent Hill's gotten 2. Blood Rain, which is not a survival horror game, but it is a horror-related game. But we did not mention that actually might be the most famous, like infamous of the just horror video game movies, because it was directed by U-Bowl, who, if you don't know who that guy is, he has been like declared by everyone basically as the world's worst director. But he he very much has a Jay and Silent Bob approach where he boxes like
Yes.
he's like a trained boxer, and he like defends his movies to the death in such a way where he challenges critics to boxing matches with him. So like if you're gonna say that his movies are bad, like you're in for a world of pain, my friend.
Yeah.
But
He also directed another survival horror, the movie version of Alone in the Dark.
oh, I didn't even.
So for some reason, friggin' they keep giving money to this guy, even though he's known to be a terrible director.
Probably because nobody else will do it.
Maybe.
And I don't know, I guess the studio must have some kind of a mandate where they're like, we have to make these games, like we have to make a movie based on a video game. We have to, like, or we need like a certain number of like scary movies this year. Have any, so just pick one of those stupid video game projects. Even if it isn't good, it'll at least make money. And that's probably what happens. They're probably like, all right, just get that jackass who did Blood Rain. And that's how he makes money. I don't know for sure. I've never met the guy, and I don't think I'd like to after saying what I just said, because if he ever listens to this, he'll probably like knock my lights out, man. But historically, these movies have not been very good.
No.
All video game movies, they historically have not been very good. I don't think there's really, like, I personally really like the first Silent Hill movie. I think that was pretty damn scary, actually. And I think it really did a good job of, like, paying respect to the franchise. I think it stayed mostly pretty close to the source material. But of course it starred, Sam Bean, who, well, you know, I don't even know if it's saying, I don't even know if this is a spoiler, but like he dies because he dies in every movie that he's ever been in. I don't think he lives in, I don't think he's been in a single world where his character has lived.
Who's that?
Sam Bean, or is it
Oh, Sean Bean.
Sean Bean? My apologies. But
Yeah.
Boromir, who also dies. He dies in everything. So it's no surprise that he dies in this movie. But I really enjoyed the first Silent Hill movie. I don't know what the Metacritic score is, actually. So that might be the saving grace of, like, horror movies. Oh, also Dead Space is a good one, too. Not a movie, but a game. Like, I didn't play all of them, but I played the first one, and it was a pretty kick-ass game.
I actually
Recent good one.
I did play it. I wasn't as much of a fan of it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I don't know. I liked it. I thought it was really interesting because it reminded me a lot of The Thing, and I think that's what they were going for. So you had those elements in there, and like the twist at the end was pretty crazy. Although I don't even understand. I didn't play the rest of the games, so I don't know if you're also Isaac in the other games or if like.
I think he does make an appearance in one of the other or two of the other.
All
games.
right. Well, then that's interesting. Just based on what happens at in that game, but I won't really give that away. I mean, you probably played this anyway, or like whoever's listening is probably like got familiarity of this game because I imagine you, dear listener, are somewhat interested and have played your share of survival horror games. But yeah, let me look at the Metacritic for Silent Hill. All right, yeah, so the Metascore is not great, but the user score is pretty high. The Metascore is 31 out of 100, and but the user score is 7.9 out of 10. So I also don't understand why the hell the rating system is like 100 or it's like both out of 100 and out of 10. That doesn't really make any sense. But okay. But I like this movie. I didn't watch the second one, so I'm not really sure how good that is. That's gotten like some like fairly negative reviews. But I like that one. The Resident Evil movies, I thought Nemesis was cool, but I I saw it when it came out in theaters, and I think it came out a little bit before Silent Hill, so I think I was a little bit younger.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't watched it in recent years, so I don't really know. I don't know if my previous review would hold up to this day. I don't think it would be the same, but there's been several Resident Evil movies. There's been the Blood Rain movie, of course. There's been the Silent Hill movies.
Doom.
Yeah, there's the Doom movie with The Rock, which
it was really bad.
I've heard that it was really bad.
Yeah, I think video game movies in general are not usually not really that good.
No, usually not. I'm trying to think if there's been a good one, and they're just not ringing. It's just not ringing any bells.
No,
we do have the Mario Illumination movie that's going to be coming out next year, which they've recently announced the cast of. There's like, people are a little bit like mixed on that one, but I think it's okay in some areas, but I think it's questionable. Like, I guess I would leave the cast alone. I guess I would leave alone the actors who were cast. I think I would leave that casting alone, but I think I would switch up a bunch of their roles. I think I know they have Charles Martinet, who is the voice of Mario and Luigi, and I think sometimes Waluigi and Wario.
Yes,
he's there for like a special appearance, but if it's a Mario, and like Chris Pratt has been cast as Mario, which fine if he does like an alright voice, and even if he doesn't, who cares? That's fine, because we had Captain Lou Albano of all people, who was like live action Mario in like the Super Show, and I love him.
But it's hilarious. I was actually talking about the Super Mario Brothers Super Show recently, I think with Tom, and like looking back on it, it's amazing how like prejudiced against Italians it is. Like, because Mario and Luigi are the most stereotypical Italian. Like, they're always like, let's eat some spaghetti. Oh, like it's like the most racist like against Italians thing I've ever seen in my life. Like,
yeah, it's hilarious. It's hilarious. It's like it's cringeworthy in some areas, but it's pretty funny because I'm a big boy and I can laugh at things like that. I'm also Italian.
Yeah. Yes, it's the same. Like, it's just hilarious, like how bad it is, like how stereotypical it is. Like, so I wonder if like Chris Pratt's gonna just be like, "Oh, I'm Italian. Oh, hey, Luigi, let's go have some spaghetti. Oh, meatballs.
I've got a gun. Let's go to a Broadway show." Yeah, it'd be totally fine. Honestly, that's kind of what I'm expecting him to do. But like, my logic is like, if you already have the voice of Mario for 30 years, like, why wouldn't you just let him be Mario? So
I just not having Charles Martinet as playing Mario.
Like, it makes the most sense. It'd be one thing if you like, if it was a casting decision to not get him, or if you just didn't want, which that would have pissed people off a little bit. But, like, it happens all the time. Actually, Ratchet & Clank I thought was a decent video game movie that was released in theaters, but also it wasn't like a live action.
Yeah, it was animated. And
so, like, I would, like, give that one, I would maybe, like, not, well, you can't not count it, but, like, I guess in terms of, like, live action movies, then they historically have been pretty terrible. But yeah, I would have made Charles Martinet Mario, like, hands down. I would have made Chris Pratt somebody else. I think Cammy is Kevin Michael Richardson, which Kevin Michael Richardson is the guy in every cartoon and video game. So, like, why you wouldn't make him Bowser is beyond me.
Jack Black is
unbelievable. Yeah.
And Charlie Day is Luigi. Like, I'm just thinking, like, Luigi's gonna fucking sound like Charlie from Always Sunny.
Yeah, probably.
Friggin' Luigi's gonna be friggin' huffing paint fumes and singing about Bayman and stuff.
Oh God. Well, I mean, that might actually be pretty interesting. But like, I would have swapped the roles again. I would have made Kevin Michael Richardson as Bowser, and I would have made Jack Black Cammy, or is he Cammy?
Kamek.
Kamek, that's what it is. I would have made Jack Black Kamek because I think his voice matches that character perfectly. Or if they were going to bring like Bowser Jr. into the mix, then I would have put him as Bowser Jr. But yeah, I don't know. Seth Rogen is very weird as Donkey Kong, and personally, I don't even know why Donkey Kong needs to be in the movie.
Well, technically, Donkey Kong is a Mario character. You know, Mario started out in the original Donkey Kong game.
I get that, but I mean, wouldn't you just like? I don't see like how Donkey Kong is gonna like work into the plot.
Maybe they're planning on doing like a Nintendo cinematic universe.
I guess. I mean, I guess at some point they'll have to go through the jungle. I'm sure they'll shoehorn something in, but yeah, he might be the only one that I just wouldn't cast. I mean, I don't know who the hell I would put for Donkey Kong because I wouldn't put Donkey Kong in my Mario movie. But yeah, that's a weird one. I mean, Charlie Day would be okay for Diddy, I guess. And Fred Armisen is Cranky Kong, which I can actually see that, so I don't really mind that one too much.
Mm.
I don't even know. Maybe I could see Seth Rogen as, like, King K. Rool, because King K. Rool's kind of a bumbling idiot.
I guess.
I'm really, like, trying to, like, do something with this, but I'm really perplexed on who I would recast in the Donkey Kong role.
Yeah, it's very strange.
It's a weird thing, but it's going to be done by the studio that did Despicable Me and Minions, which I personally really like those movies.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they'll do a decent job.
Yeah, well, and I mean, Nintendo is pushing the film pretty hard, so I think they're directly involved with it. So hopefully we'll get another Super Mario Brothers movie, you know, like we got before in the past.
Yeah,
well, I think we could save that for another podcast.
Yeah, we definitely can. I mean, I'm sure that given how bad that one is, I'm pretty sure that that they can only go up from here. But we've been proven wrong before. You can go from bad to worse.
Yes.
But I think that's all I've got to say. Survival horror games, if you haven't played them, you probably should. But also, you know, if you scare easy, maybe put the nightlight on.
Yeah. I agree. If you really want to like creep yourself out, you know, put on some headphones, turn all your lights off, you know, just sit in the dark and play some Soma or Amnesia, Resident Evil. But if you're one that scares easy and you're not a fan of that, but you still want to kind of check out survival horror games, then just play it during the day in a well-lit room. Yep. You'll be all right.
Maybe enjoy some of your Scooby snacks to get you some extra energy to muster up the courage.
I will say, when I played the Resident Evil 2 remake when it came out a couple of years ago, I did play it in the dark. You know, I played it at night with all the lights off, and I did have nightmares that I was being chased through my house by Mr. X, so...
It's real.
So, but, you know, buyer beware.
Mm-hmm. So once again, thank you guys for checking out Why Does This Exist? We've had a good time here, and I really appreciate everybody who checks all of our stuff out, especially those of you who are very Halloween-y and festive. I'm glad that you guys have been, if you've listened to like all of our Halloween stuff so far, you know, I really appreciate it, and it lets us know that we've been doing a good job. So you can, if you haven't, go back. We've got we talk about King Diamond, who's a heavy metal god. We talk about Edgar Allan Poe, and now we've got the survival horror video games. I believe the next one that we've got on our lineup is black metal.
Yes, for our final topic of our spooky October Halloween whatevers, we'll be talking about black metal, which is a genre of music that is infamous, as many people may know. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. It's going to be a good one.
Mm-hmm. There's burnings, there's murder, and of course there's music and mayhem. There's very much mayhem in more ways than one.
Black metal, the Tiger King of music genres.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you guys again for checking us out. I've been Chris.
And I've been Rob.
And remember, question everything.
Good night, everybody.